everyone, welcome back. So today I'm going to be giving you 5 tips, that's 5 tips on reading tarot for yourself. Now, I do have some exciting news very quickly before I get going. So I have actually updated the way that I sell tarot readings now. I don't know, you may know, but I sold readings on Etsy before, but now I have my brand new website, so that's very exciting, and I will leave that in the description below. You can have a little look, book a reading with me, and yeah, if you don't feel like reading tarot for yourself. But if you do, here are my 5 tips. So reading tarot tends to be all about intuition, which is amazing. However, if you're reading for yourself, it might be better if you go back to basics a little bit. So if you read the cards slightly more literally than you would if you were reading them for someone else. Because when you're reading them for yourself, you can kind of get a bit bogged down in your own subconscious and your own interpretations that you're placing onto the cards, which I think is everybody's fear when they're reading for themselves. So what I would say is, if this is something you're concerned about, just read them a little bit more kind of by the book, because that means that you're going to be really seeing the cards for the cards rather than imposing any of your preconceived ideas onto them. Tip number 2, I forgot what it was, is read the reading, do the reading, say the reading aloud as if you're talking to another person. So just act as if you're reading the cards for someone else, and that can kind of trick your mind. I mean, I do this all the time because I love the sound of my own voice, but I do think it's very good practice for reading for other people, and also it makes you more objective because you're not quite as worried about your own feelings. Basically, when you read for other people, you're doing a service to other people, but I feel like when you read for yourself, you just take it a whole lot more personally, don't you? So I think reading aloud kind of tricks your brain into being like, right, I'm reading for someone else, I just need to get the messages of the cards across, and that's it. Don't get bogged down in anything. Not that you have to be completely dispassionate when you read for other people, of course you don't, you know, you put a lot of yourself into it, but you're there to do a service, you're there to say what needs to be said, you're there to convey the messages of the cards and give your advice along the way, which is exactly what you should be doing for yourself when you read. Tip number 3 is to keep a diary. Now, this is very common advice in the tarot world, and especially when it comes to reading for yourself. So if you have a tarot diary already, then when you do your own readings, you can just jot everything down, and then you might have an idea at 3 a.m. you might wake up and think, oh, maybe that is what it actually meant. And it just means that if you're in the heat of the moment and you feel completely desperate and lost, that's the time you tend to turn to tarot. God, that was a lot of teas. That was a lot of teas. Time to turn to tarot. Yeah, so obviously when you're in that mindset, your perceptions can be somewhat skewed. And it's really helpful I almost always take a picture of my readings, and if nothing else, I try to write them down with a very brief, what this could mean. I don't like writing reams and reams, but just a little bit, and then if you like, you can go back, because there's nothing more annoying than doing a reading thinking, oh, that was so poignant, it was so poignant that I will of course remember it for the rest of my life, it just meant that much to me, and then half an hour later you can't remember what card you drew. Is very annoying. So write it down, and then you can come back to it and maybe think, oh, actually that probably didn't mean that maybe might mean this instead, or this is another thing I've not thought of that can add to this and link it to something that really makes sense and a message from someone that I need to hear, or so write it down. So number 4 is particularly, it kind of leads on from what I was just saying, but it particularly pertains to those of you who use the tarot to read the future. Now, I don't personally tend to do this because I just don't really want to know, but I don't mind a kind of week ahead reading, the general energy, the general vibe and that kind of thing, but I don't tend to read sort of years in advance, if you see what I mean. But if you do, then when you read for yourself, it's a really good idea to go back and check in and just say, you know, whether it was accurate. Basically, just keep a diary and keep it updated. It's a bit like a food diary, really. You know, how did you feel after you ate that thing or pulled that card, and, you know, just really getting into it and weighing it up, because tarot is all about exploration, whether you're reading for yourself or reading for others. And the notion of keeping a diary really ties in nicely to my fifth and final piece of advice. This is just a really quick video because there's not that much to say apart from this. Just lean into it. If you don't be so consumed with being completely objective, you know, if that don't feel right for you. Tarot can be used in so many different ways, and I like to use it and lean into the fact that I'm not objective. Lean into the fact that I'm going to be putting my own interpretations onto those cards. You can sort of use tarot as kind of a Rorschach test, like the ink blot test. And it can really help you to delve into your subconscious, and it can reveal different layers of thought that you didn't even know you had. So this really ties into my previous 2 points about keeping a diary, and going back to it after the fact, and, you know, doing a lot of really insightful and fun exploration. But what I like to do is get into a real meditative state, and then just, really meditative, really chill, and pull the cards and just let my eyes soften and just glance over them, and whatever comes into my head, any abstract words, no matter what it is, as I'm looking at these cards, and I'll jot them down and I'll try and link them, and, you know, once I'm back into kind of my rational mindset, come back into the real world, I'll try and explore why those words popped into my head. And I do that for client readings as well, but I think when you do it for yourself, it's a different thing, because when you're doing it for clients, it's like the most of it is coming from the collective unconscious, whereas really when you're doing it yourself, it's just coming from your own unconscious. That's a really simplified version, but it works for this video. I will probably go more into detail about those themes at a later date, but yeah, this isn't the time or the place for that. My biggest piece of advice is not to worry about it at all, because honestly, no matter which direction you go in, the cards don't lie, and the majority of the time, if you really meditate on the cards and you know, take a picture of them, you can come back to them, you're going to get the messages that you were supposed to get. And I think it's a real shame when people don't use tarot for themselves for the fear of not being objective enough, because I really don't think that matters. I just honestly don't. So yeah, I hope that gave you a little kind of push to read tarot for yourself if you have been avoiding it, because it is such a transformative and incredible tool, so it would be a shame not to. So I will leave a link in the description for my shop if you still feel like you don't necessarily want to read for yourself, or if you would just like a reading from me. And yeah, I'll also link my Instagram as well, because I am trying to grow my followers there as well, and I post way more frequently on Instagram than I do on YouTube, so it's definitely worth checking out. And that is everything, I believe. I will speak to you again very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.